I thought I knew Madison. 8 months ago, I got down on one knee at Riverside Park, the same place where we had our first date 3 years earlier. The sun was setting, turning the sky into shades of orange and pink, and when she said yes, I genuinely believed we wanted the same things. A simple life, a happy marriage, maybe a small house with a garden someday. But standing in our living room, that Friday night, watching her slide a folder across the coffee table, with a number that made my stomach drop, I realized I had been wrong about everything. The woman I thought I would spend my life with had just given me an ultimatum that would change both our futures forever. Before I tell you how a number almost destroyed everything I believed in, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe, because what happened next taught me the most expensive lesson about love that money cannot buy. Now let me take you back to where it all started to fall apart. We met at a tech conference in Seattle. I was there representing my software engineering firm, and Madison was managing a marketing booth for a startup. She had this energy about her, this genuine laugh that made everyone around her smile. We got to talking during a coffee break, and I learned she loved hiking just as much as I did. She told me about her favorite trail in the Cascades, and I told her about mine in the Rockies. By the end of the conference, we had exchanged numbers. Our first year together was simple and perfect. We would pack sandwiches and drive to state parks on weekends. We watched movies at home instead of spending money at theaters. She would cook pasta while I made salad, and we would eat on my tiny apartment balcony talking about our dreams. Madison told me she wanted a small wedding someday, maybe in a backyard with close friends and family. She said the marriage mattered more than the ceremony. I fell in love with that version of her. When I proposed, I had saved up for a modest ring. Nothing extravagant, but it was real, and it was from my heart. She cried happy tears and said it was perfect. For those first few weeks after the engagement, everything felt right. We talked about a wedding with around 50 guests, somewhere meaningful, but affordable. I had $40,000 in savings built up over years of careful budgeting. We agreed to spend $25,000 on the wedding, and save the rest for a honeymoon in our future. Then we started actually planning. Madison wanted to visit venues, which made sense. Every bride wants to see her options. The first few places were reasonable. Small banquet halls, garden spaces, community centers, with character. But then Madison ran into Stephanie, an old college friend who had gotten married 6 months earlier. They met for coffee, and when Madison came home that afternoon, something had shifted in her eyes. Stephanie had 200 guests. Russell, just 200. She kept saying it as if the number itself held some kind of magic. I tried to laugh it off, suggesting that Stephanie probably had a huge family or a lot of work obligations. But Madison was scrolling through Stephanie's wedding photos on her phone, zooming in on the floral arrangements, the crystal chandeliers, the 10-tier cake that probably cost more than our monthly rent. The following week, Madison said she wanted to increase our guest list to 100 people. The venues that could accommodate that many guests were significantly more expensive. I felt a small knot form in my stomach, but I told myself this was normal. Weddings grow. People get excited. I wanted her to be happy, so I agreed to look at slightly pricier options. That is when the Instagram account started. Madison began following wedding influencers, people who posted about their luxury ceremonies in Malibu and Napa Valley. Every evening she would sit next to me on the couch scrolling through images of elaborate flower walls, custom monogrammed dance floors and reception halls that looked like something from a royal palace. "Look at this one, Russell," she would say, showing me a wedding that clearly cost over $100,000. "Is this not gorgeous?" I tried to be gentle about it. I explained that those weddings were often sponsored or exaggerated for social media. I reminded her about our original plan about keeping things meaningful rather than extravagant. But Madison's response stung. "Do you not want our wedding to be memorable? Do you not want people to talk about it for years?" I did want it to be memorable, but I wanted people to remember the love, not the price tag. That distinction seemed to matter less and less to her. The real confusion set in when she started comparing our plans to other couples' weddings. Her coworker had a destination ceremony. Her cousin had a live band that cost $15,000. Every conversation became a negotiation, and I was always on the losing side. The woman who once said she just wanted to marry me, nothing else matters now, seemed obsessed with keeping up with people we barely knew. By the third month of planning, Madison announced she wanted a destination wedding in California wine country. She had found a vineyard estate that could host 150 guests. The venue alone was $35,000. When I added up the travel costs, accommodation for out-of-town guests we would be expected to help with, and the elevated catering prices in that region, we were looking at $80,000 minimum. I sat at my kitchen table with a calculator and a notepad running the numbers over and over. Even if I emptied my entire savings, I would need to take out a loan for $40,000. At a reasonable interest rate, that would take me nearly 5 years to pay off, assuming I made aggressive monthly payments. 5 years of debt for one day. The math did not make sense. The future did not make sense. When I told Madison I could not agree to that budget, she cried. She said I did not love her enough. She said every girl dreams of her wedding day, and I was crushing her dreams. The guilt hit me hard. Maybe I was being too rigid. Maybe I was prioritizing money over her happiness. So I compromised. Again, I told her we could raise the budget to $50,000 if we were very careful about where we spent. That should have been enough. But it was not. Around this time, Patricia started showing up more often. Madison's mother had always been pleasant to me, but we were never particularly close. Suddenly, she was at our apartment 3 times a week, bringing wedding magazines and printouts from Pinterest. She would sit with Madison at the dining table, pointing at pictures of ice sculptures and custom cocktail bars and photo booth setups that cost thousands of dollars. One evening, Patricia looked directly at me and said, "My daughter deserves the best. You do want to give her the best, right, Russell?" There was something pointed in the way she said it, as if my worthiness as a partner was being measured entirely by my willingness to spend money I did not have. I did some research on Patricia after that. Through mutual friends and some light social media digging, I learned she had been married twice. Both weddings were elaborate, expensive affairs. Both marriages ended in divorce within 5 years. I wondered if she saw the irony, but I suspected she did not. Patricia kept pushing. She told Madison that weddings were an investment in memories. She said, "You only get married once, honey. Make it count." The phrase made me uncomfortable because it implied that a marriage's value was tied to the ceremony's cost. I knew plenty of couples who had courthouse weddings and were still deeply in love decades later. But Patricia's voice was louder than mine, and Madison was listening to her mother more than she was listening to me. The tension between Madison and me reached a breaking point when we had our first serious argument. I tried to talk to her alone without Patricia's influence, but Madison became defensive. She said her mother only wanted what was best for us. She accused me of being unfair to Patricia, of not appreciating her help. I realized then that I was not just negotiating with my fiancé anymore. I was up against years of her mother's expectations and insecurities, all of which were being projected onto our wedding. One afternoon in the 5th month of planning, my phone rang while I was at work. It was Linda, the coordinator from a venue we had visited weeks earlier. She was calling to confirm our deposit of $15,000. I froze. We had not agreed on that venue. I had not signed anything. When I asked Linda for clarification, she told me Madison had come in the previous day and put down the deposit using a check with both our names on it. I left work early and drove straight home. Madison was in the living room looking at fabric swatches. When I confronted her about the venue, she seemed surprised by my anger. "I thought you would be happy," she said. "This is for us." She genuinely could not understand why I was upset that she had made a $15,000 decision without consulting me. We sat down with a wedding planner that weekend, someone Patricia had recommended. The planner was enthusiastic and professional, but when she handed us the estimated total cost, I felt the air leave my lungs. $120,000. The breakdown included a venue upgrade premium, catering a designer dress, an elaborate floral package, and about a dozen other line items that each cost more than I spent on rent in a month. I told the planner we could not afford that. Madison broke down in tears right there in the planner's office. She said I was embarrassing her. She said I clearly did not care about her happiness. On the drive home, she was silent, staring out the window. When we got back to the apartment, she finally spoke. "If you cannot afford this, maybe we are not compatible." The words hung in the air like a threat. I asked Madison if we could have one serious, uninterrupted conversation. No phones, no Patricia, just us. She agreed, though I could tell she was already on the defensive. It was a Friday night, and I had mentally prepared myself all week for this discussion. I knew it might be the most important conversation of my life. Madison arrived at my place with a folder under her arm. Before I could even start talking, she said she had something to show me. She called it her final wedding plan. My heart sank. I knew what was coming, but I was not prepared for how bad it would actually be. She opened the folder and pulled out a detailed spreadsheet. She had clearly spent hours on it. Every line item was listed with a cost, a vendor name, and a notes column, explaining why it was essential. The venue was $30,000. The catering for 200 guests was $80,000, which included a premium open bar and a multi-course meal prepared by an award-winning chef. Her dress and alterations totaled $15,000. The floral arrangements, which included ceiling installations and a flower arch for the ceremony, were $20,000. The photographer and videographer package was $25,000 for 12 hours of coverage and a highlight reel. The band, a 7-piece ensemble that apparently played at celebrity weddings, was $35,000. The decor, which included custom linens, chair covers, centerpieces, and lighting design, was $50,000. There were other costs, too. Invitations favors a wedding cake from a famous bakery, hair and makeup for the bridal party, transportation, and vintage cars. At the bottom of the spreadsheet in bold was the total, $300,000. I stared at that number for a long time. It was more than I made in an entire year. It was more than the down payment on a house. It was more than most people's student loan debt. I looked up at Madison, searching her face for some sign that this was a joke or a test. But she was serious, completely serious. "Madison," I said slowly, "that is more than my annual salary." I was trying to stay calm, trying to keep my voice even. She nodded as if she had anticipated this reaction. "Then we will get a loan," she said. "Other couples do it. Lots of people take out loans for their weddings." I could not believe what I was hearing. "A loan that will take us 15 years to pay off. We will not even have money for a house. We will be starting our marriage, drowning in debt." She crossed her arms. "I want a $300,000 wedding, or no wedding at all." Her voice was cold, final. There was no room for negotiation in her tone. I looked into her eyes, and for the first time I did not recognize the person sitting across from me. This was not the woman who had laughed with me on hiking trails and cooked simple meals in my kitchen. This was someone else entirely. "When did this become about the wedding, and not about us?" I asked. She bristled. "The wedding is about us. It is a celebration of our love." But I shook my head. "No, this is about showing off. This is about competing with Stephanie and whoever else you follow on Instagram." Madison stood up, her face flushed with anger. "You are just cheap," she said. "You never wanted to spend money on me." That accusation cut deep because it was so unfair. I had spent money on her. I had taken her on vacations, bought her thoughtful birthday gifts, surprised her with weekend getaways and nice dinners. I listed these things, my voice rising despite my attempts to stay calm. "Those do not count," she shot back. "A wedding is once in a lifetime." And that was when I understood. Madison did not love me. She loved the idea of a perfect wedding. She loved the fantasy she had built in her mind, fed by social media and her mother's unresolved issues. I was just a supporting character in her grand production. The realization was devastating, but it was also clarifying. I stood up and I made my voice as steady as I could. Then, there won't be one. I cannot put myself in a lifelong debt for one day. Madison's eyes went wide. You are joking, she said, her voice almost a whisper. I am not, I replied. If you need a $300,000 wedding to marry me, then you do not really want to marry me. You want a show. You want an event. But you do not want a marriage. She stared at me for a long moment, and I thought maybe, just maybe, she would realize how extreme her demand was. But instead, she grabbed her folder and said, You will regret this. Then she walked out. The door slammed behind her with enough force to rattle the picture frames on my wall. I stood in the silence of my apartment feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. Sad because I had just lost someone I thought I would spend my life with. Relieved because I had not committed financial suicide for the sake of one day. The next morning I woke up with a clarity I had not felt in months. I knew what I had to do. I called Linda, the venue coordinator, and explained that I needed to cancel everything. She was incredibly understanding. You are the third couple this month to cancel for the same reason, she told me. That statement both comforted and horrified me. How many other people were going into massive debt just to meet unrealistic expectations? Linda processed the cancellation, and I got $10,000 of our deposit back. We lost $5,000 to the cancellation fee, but considering what I had almost signed up for, it felt like a bargain. I spent the rest of the morning calling vendors. The photographer, the florist, the caterer. I canceled everything. Each conversation was a small weight lifted off my shoulders. My best friend Jake called around noon. Dude, I heard he said. You okay? I appreciated his directness. I am sad. I told him honestly, but I know I made the right choice. Jake was quiet for a second then. He said Madison posted on social media that you abandoned her. My stomach turned. Of course she had. I asked Jake not to tell me anything else. I blocked Madison on all social media platforms. I did not need to see her version of events. The weekend was hard. I kept replaying moments from our relationship, wondering where I had missed the signs. Had she always been this way, or had the wedding planning process brought out a side of her I had never seen before? I suspected it was a bit of both. The pressure of planning, combined with her mother's influence and social media's highlight reel of perfection, had turned her into someone I did not know. On Tuesday night, 3 days after our breakup, my phone rang. It was a number I recognized. Patricia. I almost did not answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Hello, I said, keeping my voice neutral. Russell, please. We need to talk. Patricia's voice was strained, almost desperate. What is it, Patricia? I asked. I was not going to make this easy for her. Madison is devastated, she said. Cannot you reconsider? I felt a flicker of anger. Did she tell you? She demanded $300,000. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. That is what I told her she deserved, Patricia finally admitted. Her voice cracked. I pushed her. I wanted her to have what I never had. I ruined both my marriages chasing perfection, and now I have done the same thing to my daughter. For the first time, I felt a small amount of sympathy for Patricia. She was trapped in her own regrets, trying to rewrite her past through Madison's future. But that was not my responsibility to fix. Then you need to tell her that, I said, not me. Patricia started to cry, and I felt uncomfortable. I told her I had to go, and I hung up. I did not hear from Madison for 2 weeks. I focused on work, spent time with friends, and tried to process everything that had happened. Jake invited me to a few gatherings, and I went even though I did not feel particularly social. It helped to be around people who knew me and did not judge me for walking away. Then one evening my phone buzzed with a text from Madison. I am sorry. Can we talk? The message was short, and something about it felt hollow. I did not respond immediately. I thought about it for a day, weighing whether there was any point in reopening the conversation. Eventually I replied. I appreciated the apology, but I told her I did not think we were right for each other. Her response was defensive, and I knew then that she had not really changed. She was sorry she lost the wedding, not sorry for what she had put me through. Over the following months, I did a lot of reflection. I thought about what I wanted in a partner and what I was willing to compromise on. Money and financial values, I realized, were not things I could compromise on. I had grown up watching my parents struggle with debt, and I had promised myself I would never put myself in that position. Madison had asked me to break that promise, and I was glad I had not. 6 months after the breakup, Jake invited me on a hiking trip with a group of friends. His sister Emily was there, someone I had met a few times over the years but never really talked to. We ended up walking together on the trail, and we started talking about life values, what mattered to us. Emily told me she had recently gotten out of a relationship where her ex had wanted her to quit her job and move across the country for his career. She had said no, and he had accused her of not loving him enough. It is funny, she said, how people confuse love with control. That conversation stuck with me. Madison had not loved me. She had wanted me to be someone I was not. She had wanted me to value the same things she valued, even when those things went against my core beliefs. Real love, I was learning, did not demand that kind of sacrifice. I am still single now. I am still hiking on weekends, still working my engineering job, still saving money for a future that feels right. And honestly, I sleep better now than I did when I was planning a wedding I could not afford. There is a freedom in knowing that I chose my financial stability and my peace of mind over someone else's fantasy. The right person will not ask you to go into debt to prove your love. The right person will not need a $300,000 event to feel valued. A wedding is one day, but financial stress can last years, even decades. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to say no, to walk away from something that looks beautiful on the surface but is rotten underneath. I learned that external validation, whether it comes from a fancy wedding or social media likes, cannot replace genuine connection. Madison and I did not have a genuine connection. We had a relationship built on an illusion, and when reality showed up with a price tag, the illusion shattered. Some prices are just too high even for love, or maybe especially for love, because real love should not cost you your future. So let me ask you this. Have you ever had to walk away from something everyone else thought you should want? Have you ever been pressured to make a financial decision that did not feel right? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that like button if this story resonated with you, and subscribe, because I believe we all need reminders that our worth is not measured by what we spend. Share this with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it helps you trust your instincts when the numbers just do not add up. Take care of yourselves and your futures. You deserve both.